In this video, I'm going to do a quick market update, and then we're going to dive into the RS scanner and look at some of the individual stocks and what it's telling us right now. So it's looking like we're going to have a follow through today, and the market is looking really good. I mean, the S&P 500 is at an all-time high right now. IWM, the Russell 2000, is about to be at an all-time high. The Dow gapped up into a new all-time high today. It's looking powerful. But also tech. So not near all-time highs, but we had a huge gap up, and we're now above the 50-day. So as long as this holds, we're looking like today's going to be we'll have to see how the volume is, but it's looking really good. And we've had a powerful move off the lows. So everything's looking good. Also, just going over some of our market indicators real quick before we move on. Breadth and participation. This is looking at the percentage of stocks in the total market, both the NASDAQ and NYSE, that are above key moving averages, right? And so this has been beaten down, not beaten down really bad, but we've seen much lower numbers. So, for example, on Sunday, breadth, percentage of stocks, above the 10, 20, and 50 were below 50%. We're now back above 50%, even 62% on the 10-day. The 200, we've been consistently above 50%. So we never got down like we did in March or we did, last April, like the tariff scare. So we look pretty good there. But we've seen just, this was updated last night that we saw, and this is likely going to be improved, once the market closes, as long as it closes strong. The NASDAQ net 52-week highs after, being kind of weakened the last couple weeks. It's improving, so we're looking good again on the net new highs. The biggest thing, though, the up-down volume was pretty weak the last couple weeks. 3 weeks ago, we were below 1. The week prior, we were below 1. Last week, we did finish above 1 at 1.2. But, man, look at yesterday's close, 5.8. We went from, looking at the last 5 days, we went from 1.2 to 1.5. And we're above over the last, going back to the last month. So showing that buying volume in the NASDAQ is, higher than, declining volume. So, I mean, we're looking really, really good. So now let's move on to the RS dashboard to get an idea. And this is generally the flow you could be using for a quick snapshot is, okay, now let's look at, since coming off the lows, what's been the strongest? Like we can see with our standard RS timeframes, or since I've shared this before, since the warning shot where we had the character change and we started really our consolidation and our correction was June 5th. But let's see since the low we put in. And you're going to notice kind of a change. We got the NASDAQ 100 back in the lead, followed by the Russell 2000 Growth Fund. And then we have the S&P, the Russell 1000, and then we have the NASDAQ 100 equal weight. So growth is back in the lead. Looking at sectors, tech, number 1 since July 29th, compared to being towards the last or towards, below 50 on the RS. Let's look at industry groups. We got memory and semiconductors in the lead. Then we got AI, robotics, automation, cyber, which has actually been good multiple time frames, even during the correction. Software, which has been accelerating from the 1 year, it's been improving, and you can kind of see that after software was beaten down for a while. And so we see some of our old leaders back. Okay, now let's dive into the RS. Actually, before we dive into the RS scanner, just a quick glance, look all the indexes. So we even got the S&P 500 equal weight at all-time highs. The NASDAQ 100 equal weight looks better than the NASDAQ itself on the chart, closer to highs, well above now the 50-day. The equal weight Dow looks great. The Russell 1000 equal weights at all-time highs. The S&P 500 or S&P 500 equal mid cap is at all-time highs. Here's the Russell 2000 Growth Fund again, close approaching highs. The value, Russell 2000 value all-time highs. Russell 1000 all-time highs. Russell 1000 value all-time highs. Even the total market VTI index all-time highs looks great. I mean, we have the NYSE all-time highs. We have the NASDAQ composite now above the 50-day, approaching towards highs. And IWF, the Russell 1000 Growth Funds, looking great, well above the 50-day. So unlike what we normally see, right, where we have growth performing and value underperforming, and then we have value performing and growth's getting beaten down. Right now, what we see is, yes, on relative strength from the lows, we're seeing tech. But overall, across the whole market, we're seeing everything performing. And we're looking at the charts. Value looks better. Your S&P 500 non-standard growth areas look even better on a chart. Bottom line is everything's looking really good right now as long as this continues and kind of holds up. So the biggest thing we're going to have to see is the volume at the end of the day, if the volume is up as well. So now let's dive back let's go into the RS scanner. And I'll start the same thing. So I will then look at sectors, and I'll look at by time frame. I'll go to all. I'll click on from the lows. I want to look at from the lows how we're doing. And I'll sort it. And look what we see. Tech is back in the lead after being towards the bottom. And so I want to see, those stocks, right? And then I'll layer on top of that, like my big earnings and sales. And I'll kind of go through that. Maybe I won't do that. I'll do leader cancel them so that they're within 15% of their highs. But I'll click on technology. And now I'll kind of go through the charts here and see, AEHR. What do I like about AEHR? I don't like this wide and loose action that we've seen. I really don't like that. Let me go to a log chart. But what I do like is look at these earnings. All right, we have a negative earnings. Looks like we got a turnaround, or sales right here, and earnings. Looks like we got a turnaround story where we go from negative earnings to positive and triple digit earnings, and we go from negative sales to almost doubling. We're in the triple digit estimates, 40% for this quarter. Funds are increasing. And AEHR is approaching new highs and is above all their key moving averages. So also it looks like AEHR held up better. So what I'll also do is I'll add to my chart here. Let me add. Performance since that June 5th, down 6%. I mean, it held up better. It's kind of like Dell. Like AEHR held up better than our ScanDisk, some of our other leader names. So that's another thing. It showed relative strength compared to a lot of other names. Let's look at SIF. At all-time highs, or it's about to be at all-time highs, new 52-week highs at least. It has good earnings, good sales, fund ownership. Dell was the name I shared this morning. And again, what do I like about Dell? Look at these earnings. Triple-digit earnings, almost triple-digit sales. And the estimates look great. Funds are increasing. It's at all-time highs. It held up better than a lot of the other areas. Laser, it's another name I like. And so this is, again, what am I looking at? Within sectors, I'm looking at tech because that's the top performing off the lows. But I'm also looking at within the leader can slim, so stocks at least $10, have big earnings and sales, and is within 15% of the 52-week high, right? That's what I'm looking at. And laser, again, I didn't like the wide and loose action, but it held up better. It held up pretty good compared to some of the other names. And we had a big run up, so it kind of made sense. And laser has good estimates, good earnings, good sales. Fund ownership increase 33% just last quarter. AMD now back above the 50-day. Again, looks like it held up better than a lot of other names. LSCC has been a name I've been watching for a while. Look at the acceleration in sales from negative to 4%, 24, 40%, and it's going to increase the next 3 quarters of estimates. Same thing with earnings. We went from negative earnings to positive, and now we're looking a lot better. Over 1,000%, next quarter. And the funds are increasing. SILC. And if you notice, all these names are in semiconductors. We got one aerospace and defense, but we have computer hardware, communication equipment, hardware equipment and parts. These are all the areas that have really been leaders continually for a while, that have just been kind of beaten down. We're correcting, consolidating, they're coming back. But I'm looking at the names that honestly are closest to 52-week highs here and have the big earnings, big sales. So, all right, then I'll do the same thing. So we just did that with just our sectors here, right? We just looked at technology. Now I'll go down to industry groups, and I'm going to look at, I'm going to do the same exact thing through individual, industry groups. I'll look at computer hardware maybe first, Dell, ANET. ANET has earnings coming up, though, but at all-time highs today. Didn't really like that wide and loose kind of price action. Has big earnings, big sales. Funds are still increasing. I'll then look at hardware, equipment, and parts separately. I'll look at what's performed the best off the bottom. REL. This was a name I saw this morning. Very volatile name here, but AEIS is an older name I remember. Let's see here. What else? APH. It's approaching near highs. Had a strong run up in 2025. Had another strong run up back in 2023 and 2024. And look, we got increase. We still have an increase, not at the same rate. Looks like it's close to it. Yeah, we still have strong sales, strong earnings. Funds are still, even though it's slowed down a little bit, funds are still going into the name. APH is worth keeping on the radar. Keys was another name I noticed. It's back above the 50-day, has good earnings and sales. All right, so you kind of get the point. You can go through the names, go back into semis. There might be some names here that we haven't discussed that are showing up. All right. So what I did was I already saw where the strength was on the RS dashboard and what the previous leaders were, and I kind of went through that sector and that industry group. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove just I'm not even going to look at by industry group anymore or by sector. I'm just going to look at what's performing in the market, right? with my leader canceling preset filter. And I'm looking at performance from the lows, coming off the lows. And I have IESC as an engineering. This is a different industry group. AEHR, we already went over. CDNA was a big name I talked about the other day, how I love this volume, except it had earnings here. So, look at that massive power. This is the type of volume, as long as you don't have maybe earnings here, you had earnings a few days away. This is the type of stuff you have a big move up, right? So it shows the power, shows the relative strength. It's beating almost everything in the market. It's a top 1-2% performer. And then when you see it pull back tight and consolidated like this with small price bars and low volume, and the second you see volume or price come in like this with a big candle where you start to see volume coming in on that day and it breaks the prior day high, that's a nice spot to buy with your stop right below the low of the day. That is what we're looking for. That doesn't get much prettier than that, okay? And so I'll go through this list here and just see the most powerful stocks coming off the low for performance based on that Leaders Can Slim filter. And I'm sure, some of these names may appeal to you. ANET, this was a name I've been watching too for a while. We're at all-time highs. ANET had a nice, powerful run in 2025, and it really was just like sideways forever. Earnings and sales are there. Funds are still growing, even though a little slower. Fix. See Fix on here. Don't count Fix out. Go to a longer time frame. Those of you that haven't been around that long, look at this. Fix has been the winner since the start of the bull market. It was in 2022, in summer 2022, we were still in a bear market. It was creating an all-time high. And since then, has really gone up 2,000%. And when you really zoom out, you realize this right here that we've seen pulling back does not mean it's over. So, and it's been in a different industry group, but Fix has been a leader the whole time. Dell, I already talked about Dell. Wisdom Tree, that was a name that I've been noticing on there. And it has big earnings, big sales, funds are increasing. The 1-year RS is at 79. That's okay. I'll go as low as 70 on the 1-year RS if I see acceleration like this. You see how it's accelerating? Wisdom Tree's in, I think in finance, asset management, yep. All right, so I'm not going to waste too much time on this, but you see what I do. A lot of you are asking for tickers and names. If you do this, you're going to see the same exact names that I like. And if you take the course, you're going to know the type of setups that I look for. You're going to know the type of price action I look for. AMD, it held up decent. I mean, for such a big run-up, from its high to its low, it pulled back 27%. I mean, some pulled back 40, 50%. But we're back above all key moving averages, moving towards highs. I like to see some more volume come in. LSCC, I think I already talked about this one. I like that we're approaching that 50-day. When you start to see the same names pop up screen over screen, that's a good thing. All right, I'm going to reset this. All right, next thing I like to look at is just big earnings and big sales. And what you'll notice, it's on a 1-year RS, is you see a lot of the old leaders, right? And a lot of the old leaders are still well below their 50, powerful off the lows, but when you look at the chart, still not great. but still go through these. Now, light's back above 50. We'll have to see what light can do here. AXTI. There's LQDA. All right. So you guys can do you guys can do this. I don't want to waste too much time. I'm already 20 minutes on the video. Also, don't neglect just looking at today's market movers. What is moving, right? And go through this list. Then look at what was moving yesterday. And then you can combine them. What was moving yesterday and today? Pre-market movers. Look at that in the morning before the market opens. Episodic pivots, check this daily on what's moved up at least 10%. And then you got to do the homework to see, is this a valid EP? Is there an actual news catalyst to it? Is it a prior beaten down name? Kind of do the rest, that you have to do there. The net 52-week high, the new 52-week high list, crucial. IBD focus on this. Almost every market wizard in the growth stock area talks about the importance of the stocks that are making new 52-week highs. Dell today making new 52-week high. And we talked about that before it even made the new high here. So let's go through this one real quick. Neo. It's in medical. Neo's another medical name. That's another thing, too. What was leading during tech was pulling back, right? It was medical, pharma, biotech, finance. So exactly what you saw me do in technology, do the same thing for that sector and industry group and see what are the best performing names within those areas too. So if this ends up being to where growth doesn't fully recover, and is kind of still lagging and everything, you're likely going to find those leaders where like LQDA, Eaton, in that area. So look at that 52-week high list. All right. I'm kind of losing my focus here on this video. Let's see here. All right, so I'm going to wrap it up here. Here's what I'm going to do before I wrap it up is just a quick overview for those of you that are newer. Mess with, because you're all different time frame traders. You might mess around with different RS. This is 1 month. What's the highest relative strength performers over the last month, over the last 3 months, 6 months, 1 year? Just to put it in perspective, Qualamagi like to look at the 1, 3, 6 month. When William O'Neill, David Ryan, even Minervini, looking at the 1 year RS, okay? But I like to look at all of them, right? You can also set custom date, like, hey, what are the top RS by, I don't know, start of the year? Or I think of this as just like there's an anchored VWAP. I think of it like that, anchored relative strength. So from key turning points, like since the June 5th, warning shot we received in the market where we started kind of consolidating, or before I would have set it from when the market started the new uptrend, stage 2 uptrend, it was at the low on March 30th of 2026. Or you can even now do as close as this the lows that we're kind of bouncing off of, right? Or we're coming off of. And so you can set your RS and see, what's most powerful there. And then you can sort it down here from most powerful to least powerful, whatever. And this is obviously, you have to remove this. This is also shown within the Leaders Can Slim framework. So like right here, what this is telling you is as of July 29, 2026, from the market lows, these are the top performing names. And if you want to see performance percentage, you can go in here in data columns and you can set that up. And so here are the names right here. These are the strongest names in the market since July 29th. And so that's really what I mess with. Primary time frame is just saying whatever you rank by time frame, it's going off of that. You can mess with all time frames. It's saying, all the time frames need to be above 80. It'll show you those names. Accelerating, what's going from, week. Like, look, this is 12 on the 1 year to 99 on the 1 week. What's accelerating, what's decelerating, going from strong 99 on the 1 year to weaker. S and DK, obviously. A lot of the names that were leading would have shown on decelerating. And then weighted RS, which is basically a 1 year RS that has a weighting. And if you're wondering what the weighting is or how it's calculated, just click here, it'll tell you. And so this is giving you all the different ways to use relative strength. You can also go into advanced filters, show filters, and you can set your min max by different time frames. You can add custom time frames. This is to filter it, to not just see it. Minimum RS thresholds. So there's plenty of relative strength stuff that you can do. And then in here, if you want to, because this base universe of a little over 3,300 stocks is, tickers that have $5 or greater, 100,000 in volume a month, average volume, and 100 million market cap. You may want stricter, like I do. I normally do. I want more liquidity, so I like to set at least $1 billion market cap, at least $1 million in volume. So you could do that in these two places here, and you can save that screen, so you can use that screen on all your other presets and screens right here, and you can save it. So for example, I have a base, I want price $10, I want liquidity here, I want market cap $1 billion, and I want volume. Let's use simple volume filters. Over the last 30 days, the average to be 1 million. There we go. And then from there, I'll save it. So I'll do save base. I'll just put, hey, this is my base filter. And so then, I can run that base filter right here with my big earnings and sales. All right. And I'll do a separate video that goes in depth tutorial over everything. But for right here, there you go. And layout. So you see I have this layout. The standard layout, if you just want the standard default, go reset to default. Click, click this out. Here it is. Oh, that's because it's using the screen. So also, if you don't want whatever you screen for to show up in there, you would click this lock my RS column. So let's lock that. And now you have your base screen. And the only thing that'll show up is I have weighted RS. So, all right, this is base what it looks like. If you want to adjust it, like I like, you can select whatever down here. Like I want to add, I want to know volume. You can add volume. I want to add right here revenue, which, sales quarter. I want to add, I don't know, the AD rating. I want to add maybe the MTS score. You could add whatever, average volume. And once you click out of here, you'll see, and you can drag these. So I want my average volume next to price. I want my sales there. Okay, cool. And then you can save this. And then you can click Save Current. I'm going to just put test. All right, and then if I want to set that as my default, just set as default. If you need to make some changes, like, I want to add the sector or the sector RS, and you can hit update, and now that'll be there. And again, you can drag and drop across however you want this to look. And if you just want to look at stuff with it, like, just on a random screen, you want to be able to see, what was the RS for the 1 day? There you go. There it is. But then when you log out, log back in, the 1 day will be gone. So that's your layout. All right, so we talked about base filters. These are your kind of preset scans. Again, you can save your own advanced filters and save them and name them however you want. These other growth scans are all like IBD, market surge type scans. And so dive into these. All right, hope that helps. I'm getting a little tired and sick of doing video, so let me know if you have any questions. Hey, reach out to me if you got questions about a stock, a ticker, a setup. Just send me a message. It's a lot easier for me to work with people one-on-one, and I'll help you out. I'll give you some feedback on what I think, and all right, take care.